Welcome to the debate. Today we're focusing on something that's, well, it's critical for contractors and roofers. We're talking about how to legitimately and drastically increase profits, moving the needle from just, getting by to actually scaling a business.
And our whole discussion is centered on the principles from Chapter 17 of Latif's work, specifically on securing better, more robust insurance supplements.
Exactly. And let's just look at the numbers right away, because the stakes here they're really high. If a contractor doing, say, 50 jobs a year can add an average of $2,500 per claim, which is very, very achievable, that's an extra $125,000 in legitimate annual revenue. This isn't about being aggressive, it's about operating with intellectual rigor and professional documentation.
That is the crucial distinction, that $125,000. That's often the margin you need to hire better people, to afford better equipment, and to insulate the business from market swings. It changes the entire game.
It really does. So the mechanism for securing that revenue, and this is the core of our disagreement today, is how we justify the necessity of these supplemental items. Should contractors prioritize citing adopted building codes as the non-negotiable legal foundation, or must they always integrate those codes with manufacturer specs and proof of pre-loss condition, what some call the triple lock, to get that maximum irrefutable approval?
And I'll say it up front, I maintain that relying solely on codes is an amateur move. It leaves money on the table, and frankly, it invites unnecessary denials. Codes are necessary, yes, they are the bedrock of legality, but they're insufficient. To guarantee approval, especially on those high-value items, you have to use that layered approach, that triple lock, to preemptively defeat every common adjuster pushback.
See, I come at it from a different angle. My position really emphasizes efficiency and legal supremacy. Code requirements, especially the International Residential Code, or IRC, once it's been locally adopted, that's the most potent legal ammunition a contractor has. Compliance is mandatory, which makes the necessity of the item legally non-negotiable.
You aren't asking for an optional upgrade. You're just documenting a legal obligation. This speeds up, 80% of the standard claims, and that maximizes your throughput and your profitability.
I see why you prioritize speed, I do. But that speed, it often comes with the risk of denial on the 20% of claims that hold the most profit. If you rely only on the code, you are completely ignoring the reality of policy language.
I think that's a slight overstatement.
Is it? The goal isn't just to be right legally, it's to get paid quickly. And that requires the triple lock. Let's just break it down, right? The code establishes the legality. The manufacturer specs establish the viability and proper workmanship. And proof of pre-loss condition establishes the carrier's coverage obligation. You need all three to create a claim that is, for all intents and purposes, impossible to deny.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. You're adding significant administrative overhead to every single claim just to guarantee irrefutability on the tough ones. So are you suggesting we spend 2 extra hours documenting every $500 fascia repair just to achieve that triple lock certainty? That absolutely kills margins on volume jobs. We have to trust the legal weight of the code for the vast majority of supplements.
I'm not suggesting overkill. I'm suggesting preparedness. Let's talk about the exact friction point where codes fail, policy exclusions. Take Ice and Water Shield, IWS. You cite the IRC section mandating it in your climate zone. The adjuster denies it, claiming it's an optional code upgrade not covered by the policy. How does your simple code citation overcome that? The adjuster is claiming betterment, that you're asking for something the customer didn't have before, which is excluded.
That is a critical pushback, and yes, it's common. But I'd argue the failure point isn't the code itself, it's the lack of proper documentation of the initial scope. If the IWS was already there, the contractor just has to document the pre-loss condition. Then they're proving they are simply restoring what existed in a code-compliant way.
Okay, but what if it wasn't there?
If it wasn't present before and the code now mandates it, the item becomes required by law. And while, yes, policy exclusions exist, the contractor's documentation has to show that the entire new roof assembly must meet current legal standards. The law supersedes the policy. The fundamental issue remains code compliance, which is non-negotiable.
But your defense relies on proving pre-loss condition, which is one of the 3 components of my triple lock. The moment you have to pull in external evidence of what was there to prove restoration, you've just conceded that the code citation alone was insufficient to secure approval.
I see your point.
The complexity of carrier policy forces us beyond simple code citation every time a large claim is involved. We have to be proactive. We anticipate the denial and use pre-loss photos alongside the code to establish the carrier's obligation to indemnify the loss in a legally compliant manner. If the IWS wasn't there and the adjuster claims betterment, the code requires it, yes, but the pre-loss evidence proves why the policy should pay for that mandatory upgrade, because the entire roof system failed and must be rebuilt legally.
I can see the value in that layered approach, especially when you're dealing with those high-friction items. But let's look at simpler components where I think the supremacy of the code holds up better and maintains our efficiency edge. Take the mandatory drip edge.
Okay.
The IRC requires its presence. If the existing drip edge is installed under the felt paper, it's unavoidable that it will be damaged during tear-off. So the code mandates its presence, and the necessity of replacement is proven by the installation method. It's that simple. We just document the code, document the damage, and the supplement should be swift.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that, not even for the simple items. The code itself, it actually betrays the idea of code-only supremacy. And let me tell you why. We need to look closer at what the code actually says about installation.
Go on.
Okay, so IRC 1507.2.8. That's the section governing asphalt shingle installation. It explicitly says, and I'm paraphrasing here, that shingles shall be secured in accordance with manufacturer's installation instructions. That's the key link. This very building code forces contractors to consult manufacturer specifications to justify components that go beyond basic materials, like specific nailing patterns or the required use of starter strips. So if the manufacturer's instructions require extra hand sealing on steep slopes, say a 712 pitch or greater, or if they mandate a specific ridge cap product instead of using waste shingles, that documentation is required for code compliance. The code itself defers authority to the manufacturer's rules. So manufacturer specs aren't optional. They are required documentation for code enforcement, which means the triple lock is inherently built into the code requirement.
That is a compelling argument. It fundamentally shifts how we view the relationship between these documents. It's not just IRC or manufacturer specs, it's the IRC requiring adherence to manufacturer specs. The strength really does come from linking that legal mandate to the practical approved requirement. It validates the need for that intellectual rigor you mentioned.
Exactly.
So let's move to the highest value strategy that Latif emphasizes, where this integration is absolutely non-negotiable: the discontinued materials strategy. This is where a partial repair can turn into a full replacement, potentially adding $10,000, $12,000, even $20,000 to a claim.
Right. And this is where the triple lock really earns its keep. We're talking about situations like the infamous Atlas Chalet shingles, which, because they're discontinued, often turn a simple repair into a massive scope change. To make that argument nearly impossible to deny, you have to layer your justification. If you only cite IRC 1506.2 on material compatibility, the adjuster will just claim a substitute material exists. If you only provide an ITL report confirming it's discontinued, they might claim non-matching color is just an aesthetic issue, not a functional one.
Right. They'll try to minimize the payout.
Always. So you have to combine all three. IRC 1506.2 gives you the legal framework. The ITEL report and documented sourcing efforts prove the lack of a reasonable substitute. And finally, you bring in state laws or case precedents on aesthetic match to address the policy's obligation to restore the appearance of the property. No single element is enough. They have to be layered to make the legal, the factual, and the policy argument all at once. That's how you secure the massive payout.
I see the financial necessity there. On claims that have the potential to add 5 figures to your bottom line, efficiency, it definitely takes a backseat to irrefutability. The complexity and financial stakes of discontinued materials absolutely highlight the power of combining authorities.
They do.
However, I would still say that even in this scenario, the foundation remains the code, specifically IRC 1506.2. The triple lock is the necessary execution of that code, proving that the code's mandate for compatibility simply can't be met without a full replacement. The power still starts with the legal mandate.
And that is a convergence point. We agree that the foundational strength comes from the code, but we diverge on whether it can be prioritized alone. For profitability, you have to assume the adjuster will use every tool available to minimize scope. The triple lock is our systematic defense against that. It's the difference between arguing a point and proving it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Indeed, we agree that building codes are fundamental. They provide the legal, non-negotiable baseline for supplements, which is critical for hitting that $125,000 revenue goal. You can't supplement without that legal basis.
And we agree that for consistent, high-value success against sophisticated carrier objections, like exclusions and warranty concerns, codes have to be systematically integrated into a layered, comprehensive strategy. Simplicity costs you thousands. Comprehensive rigor secures them.
Ultimately, both of our approaches confirm that meticulous, evidence-based documentation, which is the entire system taught by Latif, is the non-negotiable path to higher profitability. It's about raising the standard of professionalism to secure legitimate, code-compliant scope.
Meticulous documentation isn't just a requirement. It's a systematic insurance policy against denial.
This discussion on code supremacy versus the triple lock is just one critical part of a series covering Latif's comprehensive supplement system. Join us next time as we dive into the next chapter, focusing on advanced strategies and systems for maximizing contractor efficiency and profits.